So in the previous episode, we got all of our preliminaries in place for us to start building our insulin calculator. So let's dive into actually integrating the tools that are going to help us build the form. So effectively what we're looking to do is we're looking to build an HTML form that can take in a set of inputs and provide a calculation that is going to determine how much insulin to serve or inject the patient with. So basically what we do is we take in the carbohydrates that the individual is going to eat, and we divide that by a doctor-provided carbohydrate factor. Then we're going to measure blood sugar and subtract a target blood sugar provided by the doctor and divide that by a correction factor, also provided by the doctor. So these first three inputs here are pretty static. They're not going to change all that much, but these will change on a regular basis, and these are more likely to change. But anyway, we've got to provide a form that allows somebody to enter all five. But you can imagine how maybe down the line we might want to implement some local storage or something like that to persist these less volatile numbers. But for our purposes today, we're just going to install and create 5 inputs here. So in order to do that, first we've got to install DaisyUI. DaisyUI is a great little design system that gives us some additional sort of superpowers on top of the Tailwind design system. They've got great documentation, so I'm just going to go ahead and follow along here with what they have going. Except I'm going to use PNPM. And then I'm going to throw this require statement inside my tailwind.config.js. And that looks good. Okay, so then we go back to our client and we see that it's now dark. This tells me that DaisyUI is working because their default sort of style and theme is dark. So good to go there. So the next thing we need to do is install our form state management. So we're going to use React Hook Form to basically manage the values that are in each input. We're going to use Hook Form resolvers and Zod to validate that input in a subsequent episode. But let's go ahead and get all of those installed. So I'm going to add React Hook Form, and I believe it's Hook Form, all one word, resolvers, and we're going to add Zod. Great. All right, so now that we've got all of our dependencies installed, I can kind of remap everything here in the app. So we have this generic app component. We're just going to get rid of that. And instead, we're going to create a calculator namespace here. And we'll call this insulin calculator.tsx. So we're going to change that reference. That's going to cause an error on our page here, right? But we need to actually create our component, right? Const hello from insulin calculator, just to make sure everything's working. Let's restart our server just for good measure. And add our import here, and we should be in business. Yep, here we go. Okay, so now we're ready to actually start wiring up our form. So I'm going to create a form, and I'm going to change this title to just insulin calculator. And with Tailwind, it can be pretty tempting to do something like this. The problem with that is it's very brittle, and you're effectively creating an abstraction layer for inline style sheets. We want to create repurposable, reusable stylings. So to do that, we're going to use a BEM or block element modifier approach to encapsulate these ideas. So instead of calling this text for Excel, I might actually refer to this as a form title. And I can refer to that in some CSS. So I'm going to create a new folder. And we'll call it calculator.css. Actually, let's call it form. We're going to generalize this and keep it. I'll probably just name it form. One of the hardest things we do is name things. Okay. So in here, I'm going to create a form title, and I'm going to apply text for Excel, right? This gives me a nice, clean way to refer to that generalizable element without inferring any of the implementation details, right? Let me change this to post CSS. That'll allow us to use that apply keyword. So now I just need to reference that in my component. And you can see the text is bigger now. Great. In here, just for the purposes of our tool here, we can say apply container, and we'll do MX auto, and we'll do max Excel. How about that? Oh, oops, sorry, that's the wrong. So these are all Tailwind stylings that are available to us. That's the one I was looking for. So now you can see I'm centered and looking pretty good here, right? The form itself, we'd probably want to put inside a container, but this will work for our purposes. I'm also going to add a little padding to the form. See, now I got a little bit of space. See how easy it is to manipulate these classes as opposed to having to hack into the JSX. It's just significantly easier. Okay, so next I want to go ahead and create my inputs. So I can go to the DaisyUI sort of settings here and documentation and look for a style that I like. And in my case, I'm looking for something like this. I want a label on the top and a simple input, right? So I can take this and copy it directly here. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to effectively BEM out everything that they've provided. So let's change all these to class names. And you can see what that looks like in the context of my app, right? I really only want this one label. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the bottom labels here. Well, actually, I'll leave this one because I'm going to need it in a minute when we do validation. So I'll leave that. And I'll just leave it blank for now. But here, the first thing that we're going to ask, if we go from the README, is the target A1C, right? And we're not going to use a top right label. Okay, so already you can start to see this coming together. But as I mentioned, these are not BEM friendly and maintainable class names. So we're just going to swap all these out. So in this case, we can call this a form label. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take all of this and I'm going to apply it to the form label class name. Just like so. And then here, we've got a label, let's call it label container. And we apply label to that. And then we're just going to take all of these inputs and change this to form input, like so. And now we just make sure that our class names are being used well throughout. Yeah, we're just going to get rid of that for right now. And we haven't lost any fidelity on our component here. So next, all we have to do is duplicate this for all of our inputs. One thing of note, we can use a number field here because all of these values are going to be numeric. We're going to perform a mathematical calculation on it. So here we can do a correction factor. Good. And because I've generalized all these classes, all I have to do is swap out the label name. So if we go back to our README, we're going to do carbohydrate factor, A1C reading. And then it's going to be the number of carbohydrates in grams. And there we are. We've got the beginnings of our form. So in our next episode, I'll wire this up to React Hook Form, and we'll also clean some of this up and reduce some of the duplication.